You're the one person that I always get asked about if I know. They say, do you know Vocab Malone? And I say, no, I don't know Vocab Malone. And now here you are. And as I kind of been researching a little bit and following a little bit of what I can about you, can you just kind of give us, how does this young cat go into the rap industry, then seminary, then Islamic studies? I mean, it's quite a crazy divine ride that you're on. Could you share that with us?
Yes, no one knows except for God. But I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, and was always fascinated with a lot of the culture that was around me, which was sort of a burgeoning hip-hop culture. And it wasn't perfect then, but it was more innocent, to say the least. And the more serious along the way, when I was in sort of young college time area of my life, started getting more serious about who Jesus was, I realized that that meant he would be evident, or should be evident, in every area of my life. And so I started to try to work on integrating the Jesus into everything like I should have been all along, and that included whatever I was doing with hip-hop or art. And so it was really a natural progression as far as that goes. I grew up around hip-hop. I loved it. It was a good means of expression to be able to talk about these kinds of things, theology and all of that. And I would eventually go out in the streets and kind of use it to witness, whether it was Mill Avenue or block parties or whatever the case was. And that would lead to conversations, which then people ask questions. So then if you care about answering them, you start studying apologetics. And eventually I wanted to do less of the rapping because I wanted to kind of get straight to a conversation, not because I didn't like the art. I just wanted to cut to the chase. And so that led to all kinds of things. And eventually I got more and more serious, where through God's grace found myself at seminary to really take these things even more serious. And so the thought process all along the way, how I ended up at Phoenix Seminary, was just, people would say, what are you going to do? Are you going to be a pastor? Are you going to do this? I would say, I don't know. I just want to be more equipped. Whatever I'm doing, I want to be more usable. That was really all I knew. Still do some hip-hop, not as much. And now the main group of people I've been witnessing to is the Muslims here in Phoenix. So that's a lot conflated, but then again, sorry for the long answer.
No, that's excellent. Now, I think probably would kind of build off of what you said there, the thing that intrigues me the most is why Muslims? What about that people group got your attention and drew you towards your witnessing efforts to that?
Well, I began just mainly studying whoever God brought in my past. And so that seems to make sense. And so that results here in Arizona, a lot of Mormons and a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses, because there they are out in the streets and different things, and a lot of sort of atheist, humanist, skeptic, that breed, because a lot of what I'd be doing would be in and around ASU or Mesa Community College, those kinds of places. And so that was just what was there. But along the way, I would always kind of keep an open eye on what Islam was, because I knew it was big and I knew I needed to learn more about it. And I would just keep an open eye on it, but I felt it was tough, like you have no outlet. I'd be learning about it and say, I know this is important, but where are the Muslims that I can talk to? Where's the people? I hear stories, but our paths don't cross a lot. And it got to a point where some of the stuff I was doing on Mill Avenue seemed like it was time at least I should move on from making that my primary, or one of my primary places. And while I was kind of thinking that, a crazy thing was a guy who was clearly Islamic walked by me on Mill Avenue. And you never see that out there. He had the full garb on, and he was with a couple other young men. So I just stopped him. I was actually in the middle of a conversation with an atheist, and God bless her soul, she was boring me and lecturing me why God didn't exist because the human spine evidenced bad design because her back hurt. And so I left that conversation quickly and said, "Excuse me, sir, may I please speak to you about Islam. And he was just surprised, like, what, this guy wants to, you want to talk about Islam? Yes, let's talk about Islam. And next thing I knew, this was during Ramadan. This was about a year ago. And they brought me over to Tempe Mosque. We started talking. I met probably 10 or 15 different guys that night, some who I'm still in contact with. And I just said, what a way to witness to the Muslims right at the mosque. And it was really awesome because I realized that if I hadn't been studying Islam off and on, I would never have been prepared for any of the conversations I had that night, even though at the time I didn't really know why I would be studying it when everyone else I was meeting was, like I said, Mormon, Jehovah's Witness, Roman Catholic, Atheist, whatever. But it came into play, and since then I've been finding opportunities. I've been sort of now finding ways and learning how to go out of my way to come in contact with Muslims. I just view it as it's a mission field in our own backyard, I think, in a unique way. And the more I get involved with it, the more I see that. So I'm not going to try to guilt everyone else into just focusing on Muslims, but I do know more of a should be because it's a unique kind of mission field that we have access to right here. And what are we going to do about it? So that's sort of the rationale that I have thus far.
What do you think is the common mistake that the American Christian makes when they try to witness to a Muslim?
Well, okay, I could be wrong, but I'm not real certain that the American Christian gets a chance to make the common mistake that much because I'm not real certain how often they're witnessing to the Muslim. There's just a lot of fear and misunderstanding that it gets in the way, and it just there's all these walls. And it's interesting what's happening in Western Europe. The socialists don't like to make kids, and they don't really like to work either. But the Muslims in these economically deprived countries, as far as there's not really much of a middle class in a lot of them. I'm not saying there's no money there, but it's not spread around as far as it's not they're not capitalists in Saudi Arabia by and large, really. So they come over to Western Europe, they'll do the work, and they'll have the kids. And the Western Europeans don't know what's going on. There's like this subset, this whole subculture right in their own backyard, and they just don't know how to deal with it because they're post-Christian. They don't really have the resources in their worldview. And so there they are. And I could see something like that happening in America, and the church 40 years from now will say, where did all these Muslims come from? And they're all here, but I don't, what's going on? But the thing is, they're coming over little by little, and they have lots of reasons. A lot of them from Iraq. They're not over here just to conquer the United States. I mean, they're from war-torn countries, and one of the biggest victims of Islamic violence often are fellow Muslims, believe it or not. And, so they come over, and more, and little by little, there's more and more mosques. A lot of them are old churches. And what do? So I don't think there's enough even witnessing and real genuine evangelism interaction going on in the first place. So I don't know if there's a common mistake. I would say if there is, it's actually avoiding or just kind of not beginning the process in the first place. I'm not saying everyone does that because, again, you have to be pretty purposeful and sort of bold a lot of times. But that would be my view is that it just doesn't happen enough. It's like becoming its own subculture, and what are we going to do? Are we gonna let it grow and have this unreached mission field right in our own backyard, or are we going to say, hey, thank you, God, for bringing unsaved people from other countries to us. Thank you, Lord. They would have not been able to probably hear the gospel in their country because the Christian church over there is either small or decimated or gets persecuted, but here we are. Well, what an incredible opportunity. So I think it's maybe the attitude of seeing it as a wonderful opportunity of we all get to be missionaries and we have an opportunity that's rare to reach out to the Islamic world. It really just hasn't happened hardly almost in the history of the world because most of the Muslims have lived in Islamic countries. It's hard to do missions work in those places. Well, now they're spreading out. So this is our chance. So avoidance.
Let me maybe rephrase it. a little bit, because I agree. It's hard enough to get the church to go and witness and evangelize just to normal Americans, let alone go into a subgroup like this. So let me kind of restack it here. I see one of two ways. I have a friend who goes witnessing to the Tempe Mosque, and he kind of does this approach of where he is doing kind of a friendship evangelism, where he gets to know them, talk with them, becomes a little Q&A, and it's kind of built up over time. And then I see folks who try to engage more directly with the Muslims, almost like an apologetics kind of, this is why Islam is a false religion, and this is why Christ, and I think from that vantage point, how do you fall in? Do you go to one side or the other? Do you use both of them? How do you kind of formulate your witnessing effort to the Muslims?
Right. Ideally, you can do both. And so, when for example, there's a security guard at a place I go to, it's my job, and there's a guy there, and I could tell he was new to the country, so I just said, may I ask you where you're from? And he told me Somalia, and I said, are lots of Somalians Muslims? He said, yes, 99.9%. We are very happy to be Allah's people. So we began talking, and I said right away, this is good. I want to talk to you because I'm a Christian, and I believe that Muslims, like all unbelievers, are dead in their sin and need to know Jesus as their Savior, and so I love to talk to you. I said that in pretty much the beginning, but he seemed to appreciate, and most of the Muslims I meet seem to appreciate the directness. Now they'll say, no, see, that's the difference. We don't think, and they start naming why what I said is problematic. But generally speaking, they can handle that kind of forthrightness. And I say, I'll even basically say, I'd like to be your friend, and I hopefully prove it by being friendly. But so that ideally you do both, where you are viewing this person as a friend who may have needs that you can even meet, teach them how to fill out a job application, frequent their business, support their business, whatever it is. But at the same time, it's all cards on the table, generally speaking. And generally I see good things happen because that way it's not like they're caught off guard later. That way they understand that you are a strong Christian who thinks Islam is a false belief system. But if they can handle that, like a big boy or a big girl, then let's go on and be friends and let's keep on talking. It's difficult if they can't, or it's also difficult if they don't really care about these things anyway. A lot of Muslims you meet are just like nominal Christians, and they're like, yeah, we're all the same. I don't really know anyway. Ha ha ha. Those actually people are harder to talk to because they're almost like the Islamic version of Joe Blow American. They say they're Muslim, but they don't really care. They don't really know what they're talking about anyway, and it's difficult to really get them to even care. So I don't know about either or. I mean, the big mistake is to just be friends and never really show them that without Jesus, they are dead in their sins. But at the same time, if you just go and say, you all want to kill us, I know your secret plans, and that kind of thing, or walk up to them and say, your prophet is a pedophile, just begin the conversation those kinds of ways. That doesn't seem loving. That doesn't seem wise. It doesn't seem strategic. It doesn't seem to have any kind of long-term strategy in mind other than just to make people upset and, I guess, make yourself feel good. But that doesn't mean we're not bold. So I see both. And, yeah, there's different methodologies. People may lean one way or the other. There's guys I see that I think come on way too strong. There's a lot of other guys I see that it just seems like they're never getting anywhere. I think there's a balance, but it's difficult. Witnessing the Muslims is hard. It's exciting and challenging, but it is hard. It's just different.
Now, one of the things I think, too, and I'm surprised I never saw you on Mill Avenue. We've spent a lot of time out on Mill. When you go out, just going out street preaching and doing witnessing is already kind of, odd enough. It's almost, it's kind of hard to find people with like interests to kind of have that commonality to build a friendship around. Folks who are interested in witnessing to Muslims, could you share some resources with them, websites that you use, or, do you guys at your church have a organized witnessing team that goes out that they could get a hold of to say, hey, I want to check this out, I want to learn more? How would they do that?
Well, I imagine, Jeremy, that the friend that you mentioned is probably part of something that I'm familiar with right here in Phoenix called CID, Christian Islamic Dialogue, and CID is a group of Christians, small but consistent and steady, who makes an effort to go outside of the mosque, especially on Friday afternoons when they get out of the big prayer time there, and witnesses to them. So, Christian Islamic Dialogue, I do not remember the website initials or whatever off the top of my head, but it is abbreviated CID, and if you put Christian Islamic Dialogue and put in like Phoenix or something, you'll be able to find it. So that is a local resource. There are also 2 Arabic churches in the valley that I know of, and they don't necessarily do that kind of thing a lot, but getting to know them and spending time with them is helpful with resources that they have that you may not have access to, or even questions maybe about Arabic or different cultural questions you may have, because they're fellow believers, and so they're a good resource to make connections with, and they're very warm and friendly, inviting people, small congregations, but a valuable resource as we try to do this in Phoenix. And as far as on a national level, the best apologetics website I know of is Answering Islam, is the name of the website. And all the people that contribute on there are top-notch, and they really deal with every single issue conceivable in a thorough kind of way. And that's the best all-around apologetic resource. They even have a lot of free books you can download as zip files. So that's probably the best overall place as far as the materials you'll need.
Now, going back some time, maybe 6 months, maybe that far back, and my timing may be off here, but somebody was telling me that church did a debate with the Atheists, and that you were actually kind of part of that. Can you kind of just spend a few moments talking about that? It sounds like such a great idea.
Downtown, like a lot of the downtown urban areas, is sort of having what you might call urban renewal, and a lot of art kind of places, coffee shops, natural gardens, all that kind of stuff is popping up everywhere. And we're glad to be downtown Phoenix when no one really knew what it was going to be like or what it would become. But here we find ourselves downtown. And there are evangelical churches coming downtown slowly but surely. But a lot of the churches in the general downtown area, again, like a lot of downtowns, are pretty liberal in their theology to the point of not really being a gospel light or gospel witness. Now, that's changing, so I'm not saying we're the only ones. I'm just saying historically, you're the minority, especially in the downtown like ours. So we want to reach out through apologetics and intertwine it directly in evangelism. And one way, I think, to do that is to do debates on First Friday when everybody is out and about downtown Phoenix. They do the art walk, so everyone's out. There's literally thousands of people just milling around several blocks, going in art galleries and all that. Well, we've done a couple of debates where we set up a little stage right on our front porch of our steps, get a loud speaker, put chairs on the front lawn, and then have a moderator, and then say, here's the question tonight. Does the existence of evil does evil nullify God's existence? Vocab is going to debate these 2 atheists, one local from Tempe and one on Skype from Portland, Oregon. Let's go. And that's what we did. We've done a few things like that. And it's helpful because then people can stop by, ask questions. It's a great time to engage people. And I believe, by the grace of God, that the truth of the gospel goes out, because I try to make any apologetic venture evangelistic, and so I'm not hopefully just merely being, philosophical or something, but the gospel witness and scripture is present and answers, I pray, that I would give, and so it's a witness as well during it. So that's We've done a couple of those. They're on online at Vimeo. You can see some of the footage and get an idea. I found them very helpful. We got a lot of positive feedback from them.
Now, the atheist that you had, was it the performing atheist guy, or was it one of the local atheists that kind of just set up against the street preachers?
With a guy that's known as the performance atheist, Omar Call, who's a former Mormon. I did meet him out on Mill Avenue. We did one debate about a year and a half ago in Tempe at a church called Apologetics Church. It was 2-on-2. It was him and the leader of the thing called Better Than Faith, the Mill Avenue Resistance. It was those two guys together against myself and another pastor, and that one was on which makes more sense, Christianity or atheism. And that video is almost done. We had a lot of problems. It was our first kind of professional debate, and there's a lot of problems with the video. The audio is available, though, if you just type in the title of the debate. That was that one. And I did one other thing with Omar, and I did do this on First Friday. Now, this is a little different. This was a panel. It was a forum type thing. It wasn't a true debate. The question we asked was, can atheists and Christians be friends? And I had Omar and another guy who's an atheist who's a blind gentleman, and we three spoke together because we're actually all friends in real life, which is funny because, we've debated in person and in professional context as well as on the street, as well as on, all that. And yet we do have a friendship where we see each other, occasionally hang out, our families know each other. So we basically said yes. But again, I encourage people to listen to that discussion because you may get the wrong idea and think, so Vocab was just on there just saying, it wasn't like that. My answer was similar to what I said about Muslims. If they know right away where you stand and they're not demanding you try to take that off the table so you can remain friends, I think it's a wonderful thing that's part of what you're regularly discussing. In fact, really almost the main thing. And you still can have a genuine love and care and concern for each other. In fact, the other day, Omar's wife said to me, she said, Vocab, when you come over, you don't always have to argue with him. She said it in a funny way because that's what we tend to. I really want to be a gospel witness in his life, and I do enjoy him as a person. I really like him, and I like being his friend. I would be sad if I lost his friendship, but at the same time, I couldn't compromise, the gospel to keep it. But so far, he hasn't put me in that position, so I'm glad.
One of the things with the atheist group in the Mill Avenue kind of First Friday is you kind of get a chance to get to know them a little bit, and some of them are just quite likable people and have a great sense of humor. I remember one time we were out witnessing, and they decided that they were going to come witness to us. So they had somebody dressed up as an alien with their own version of Bible tracts. But instead of going to heaven, what you got was a trailer, a double-wide trailer in a fairly nice neighborhood was their idea. And it was comical, and I don't think, you sit there and watch the effort they put into it, and it's they are a fun bunch and can really, I think, crystallize the argument to the passerby, because you now have something to play off of to compare and contrast in real time, which is quite enjoyable. Now, I want to ask you about radio.
Yeah, we've been doing that since October of 2010, and it's a doctrine, theology, apologetics show. We try to do it at sort of a street level, but also that works in a college context. So we'll say 21st, what do we say? Street level apologetics for the 21st century. That's a tagline. Another one is backpack radio from the classroom seat to the inner city street, that kind of thing. So, like, for example, last night's show was we had on a local atheist blogger named Dylan Walker, and we actually did an in-studio debate, so we were face-to-face on the abortion question. So we have people in and do that, but then also sometimes we'll just talk about a trip. Like I went to Salt Lake City a couple weeks ago, and we just discussed the trip. It was just called Salt Lake City Evangelism, and it was just the three of us. So that's the kind of show it is.
Who was the app guy?
The what guy? Oh, the app
guy.
That is Doug Powell, Dougpowell, and you can find his stuff, I think, on Broadman and what is it, Holdman Publishers or whatever. Broadman and Holdman, I think it is. And he also has books. His books are really unique. They're apologetic books, but he's a graphic artist, so he's really creative. He integrates all these pictures and images, but in a real classy, like, not distracting way. So he's a unique guy, and now he's making these apps, and there's just really nothing like him. Really cool thing. So we like to have on guys like that, as well as the older guys who have been professors for a while, like we just had on, well, the show hasn't aired yet, but Alvin Schmidt, a retired Lutheran professor who writes on Islam a lot. He has a book called The Great Divide, the failure of Islam and the triumph of the West. And so we don't just have, cool young hip guys on there. We like to have a broad show appeal and do it serious, but also kind of in a engaging, kind of fun way. So the show's not for everybody, but we think it fills a niche in apologetics radio.
Yeah, I have I think a mutual friend who loves your show. His name's Marcus Mattingly, and he's always talking about that show. Now, kind of to switch gears to something lighthearted, since you come from the rap field, I need your honest rap opinion on something here. Which is better, Deep Space Five or Beautiful Eulogy?
That's a funny question. Well, those are really good underground groups with lots of skill. They've achieved skill levels that I never had or probably never achieved. Those are good groups. The pick I would go with would be Beautiful Eulogy, primarily because I find it more infused with, how do you say it, without a deeper theology. Deep Space Five has intellectual content, but to me, the Beautiful Eulogy is just really unpacks theology in a sort of poetic way that I really appreciate. So I've always liked Deep Space Five, but I've definitely listened to the Beautiful Eulogy album a lot. And, it's a free download. Go to Humble Beast and you can download the thing for free. People can see what they think. But I would probably say that. It appeals to the sort of melancholy, artistic side of me that likes that kind of hip-hop,
Yeah, no, I agree. I listen to Beautiful Eulogy, and it's the only hip-hop that drives me into worship mode. It's just an amazing thing. And we've had them on the show, Braille and Odd Thomas and Propaganda, and these guys are just, it's an amazing thing, amazing thing. And I was just curious because I was a huge Deep Space 5 fan and still am, but when I heard Beautiful Eulogy, it was like completely to another level. It was like what you said, taking that intellectual idea and now just opening it up to the scriptures and theology. What I'd like to do now, if you don't mind, Vocab, is I'd like to ask you just to close us out in prayer. Would you do that, sir?
Yes, I would, Jeremy, and thank you very much. And it's funny, just like you said, people, I guess, asked you if, me. I had a couple guys come in recently from California and different things, and they were like, oh, yeah, do you know Jeremy, Remnant X Radio? Because, so it's just funny, and I like, man, people are asking me about Jeremy.
I get asked about you all the time.
So I've listened to some of the shows. I've listened to all the times you had on Marcus, for example, because the ones on Mormonism and different things. So, yeah, keep it up. And I always like when you play hip-hop, so keep it up.
Right on.
Yeah.